Hey, what's up you guys, it's Connor. Today I'm going to be doing a book review on Crown of Feathers by Nicki Pau Preto. If you guys don't know, Crown of Feathers is Nicki Pau Preto's debut YA novel. It follows this world where there were warrior queens that were basically phoenix riders, so they could ride around on phoenixes and protected their lands. They're actually warrior queens, and then they ended up like joining forces with these valley kings and becoming one superpower. Obviously the warrior queens end up staying in charge and they form an empire. At the beginning of the novel we find out that two princesses were the cause of this empire failing. Valkyria and Feronia, I have no idea if I'm saying their names correctly, were two sisters. They were half sisters and they ended up allowing politics and other things to come in between them, and the empire just crumbled and they had this huge civil war. And now, at the beginning of this book, it's 16 years later, and we're following two girls, Val and Veronica, and they are sisters. At the very beginning, they're going around trying to find phoenix eggs because they are able to do magic in this world. You have to be able to do magic in order to be able to become a phoenix rider, and both Val and Veronica have these powers. This world has a magic system that's similar to the Realm of the Elderling series by Robin Hobb, if you guys have read that one. Basically, there's two different types of magics. The more common type of magic is called animages. I know that sounds lame, but it's basically where you can talk to animals. So it's kind of like the Realm of the Elderling's wit, but in this world, originally being an animage was a good thing. Now it's not a good thing because during the Civil War, ordinary people rose up and took over this empire, and now there's only one country that allows animages to live their lives in peace. So both of the girls are animages. That's why they're trying to find phoenix eggs and trying to become phoenix riders. But these girls also have the other type of magic. They are also shadow mages, which is this super rare type of magic. Animages make up about 10% of the population, but shadow mages are this super rare thing, and there's only like 1 in a million type of thing. I would say that Veronica is the main character of this story, but you do get some perspective from Val. Veronica is super nice and she's a good person, and Val is like evil. But you also get two other perspectives that I don't even think are mentioned in the blurb. You follow a boy named Sev, and he is an animage, but he has been hiding his animage powers because he lives in the Empire, which doesn't allow you to be free if you're an animage. You either get heavily taxed, which most people can't pay, so then they end up being conscripted and they are forced to serve this empire in however the empire sees fit to make them serve. So he's 18 years old, he's been conscripted, but they haven't found out that he's an animage, so he's just a regular soldier and he's not what's called a bondservant. Sev is also attracted to other men. One thing in this world is that sexuality is like not a big deal. One of their oldest queens had a political husband, but then her true lover was this other woman that was also a phoenix rider, so they basically were together, and then the king was just kind of like bopping around on his own. So just know that going in, that one of the main characters is gay, bisexual. I don't think it says it on the page, so I don't know exactly what he is, but he does find other men attractive. Then the last perspective that you follow is a boy named Tristan. He is the son of the rebels, the ones that are living in this last safe haven for phoenix riders. His father is one of the surviving phoenix riders from before, when the empire was still one big empire. Tristan is also a phoenix rider, but the one thing that is a problem is that he has a debilitating fear of fire, and phoenixes are all about fire. Those are the four main characters, and basically it follows them as they're trying to live their lives and, you know, accomplish their goals. Sev's just trying to survive this forced military service. Tristan is trying to get over his fear of fire, and the two girls, Val and Veronica, are trying to become phoenix riders and be heroic and stuff like that. Usually with my book reviews, I go through my pros, go through my cons, give you my rating, and then be done. But with this one, I'm actually gonna flip it and start off with my cons, move on to my pros, talk about some neutrals, and then be done. It just makes more sense for me to flip it for this one, because the first con for this book is that the first 50 to 60 pages are not amazing. The first 50 to 60 pages are basically one humongous info dump, an info dump so bad that the author should be fined for littering. That's how bad it is. Basically, Pau Preto is shoving all of this history onto you. She also throws all sorts of stuff at you. She throws different words that are part of this language. She throws different cultural things at you. And she definitely does throw a ton of history, like I said before, and it's very off-putting. It's like she's trying to very quickly establish that this world has a lot of depth, which I don't think is the right way to do that. Like, you could have just started the story and then backfilled in with some of that history when we needed it. For example, at one point in the book, really early on, Veronica is potentially going to be found out or be captured or whatever, and then that is the moment that we start to get a rundown of Veronica's favorite shows that she watched when she was a kid. Like, that doesn't need to be there. That's so unnecessary. And it never goes back to talk about those shows again. So I don't know why we were even given that information. Like, that is not important to know right now. What we need to know is what's gonna happen to this girl because she's about to be found out. Like, I don't know why we had to stop everything that we were doing to talk about different shows and running through the marketplace. So I definitely think that she sacrifices plot and moving the plot forward and getting you engaged in the story to make sure that you know that she's thought about the history of this world and thought about the different cultures of this world and thought about what these people eat and what these people do for fun and all these different things that are great to have in a novel to prove that this world is more real and more concrete, but there's a time and a place to have that information dabbled in. But she does it all right in the beginning and it's like, whoa, stop it. For this reason, I totally understand when people DNF this book a little bit early on because I was tempted. I saw some other people talk about how they DNF this book after the first 80 pages, 100 pages, and I totally understand that, but I would actually encourage you to push past that initial info dumpy section because it does get better after the first 60, 70 pages. Also, something to get over during that first info dumpy area is that the characters aren't as fully fleshed out. I mean, obviously it's the very beginning of a book, so they're not going to be fully fleshed out, but they do start to get more rounded and more realistic, I guess, as the story progresses. Just continue past the info dumps. My only other con is that the pacing does continue to be a bit off. There are a couple more, a lot smaller sections where the plot almost completely stops moving forward so that we can find out information about this world. So she definitely hasn't woven the information into the story super well, and she takes breaks from the plot to give you that information. One of the main things that contributes to some of the weird pacing feels of this book is that there are treatises and articles and letters that are included in between chapters. Let me find one. So for instance, here is a letter and they happen in between chapters, and they also happen between a lot of chapters. Like, there's another one, and I don't know how I feel about them because they really just stagnate the plot because you're finding out some history. Like, it could be a page out of a history book that you're reading and then continue with the story. So it was very weird with the pacing. It seemed like it would make more sense if the characters were finding out those things or were being reminded of the history or maybe finding these letters or something, and that's when you would include them. I don't know how I would have included that better. In retrospect, after finishing the novel, I appreciate their inclusion. I just don't know how I would have done it because it does really disrupt the plot of the story. Now I'm going to talk about pros because I had a lot more pros than I had cons. My first pro for this book was that I did not realize how addicted I would get to it. So after that first initial part where I wasn't really enjoying myself, the drama kickstarts and I just was eating it up. I was loving all the drama that was happening with all the characters. Each one of them has so much stuff going on that was like, you guys are all huge messes and I'm enjoying reading about you so much. It's not unpredictable. It's not things are really shocking me, but I'm enjoying having the tension grow and grow and grow and then seeing what happens. Like, you definitely know this big confrontation is going to happen between different characters or this character and themselves later on. But you're just waiting for it to happen, and I was really excited and really having a good time waiting for those things to happen. So even though it is a bit predictable, the drama makes it so much fun. As I said, the characters do start to flesh out as the novel goes along, and I do think that my favorite character was the one that she decided to follow the most, which was Veronica. Her and Sev are the ones that have the most growth throughout the story, and I enjoyed watching her growth. She starts off as this very passive sister. She allows Val to really control her life, and then throughout the course of the story she starts to get stronger. She starts to have her own opinions. Not that she didn't have her opinions before, but she starts to express them, and she starts to take control of her own life. She was probably the most well-rounded character, I think. A lot of the secondary characters aren't fully fleshed out yet, but there's still time to do it in the rest of the series. But Veronica was a really strong character that you can get behind, and you get invested in her story. You want her to succeed. After a certain point, towards the beginning of the book, an event happens, which I won't say, and I was like, oh my god, is this happening right now? And then I was hooked, and I just wanted to know everything about Veronica and follow her on her journey. So she was great. I cannot wait to see what happens with her in the future of this series, because I think that she is obviously going to be a huge player. But I'm excited to see how she continues to grow. My other favorite character is definitely going to be Sev. He also starts to really come into his own, and I enjoyed seeing him go through the process of having to accept himself for who he was, accept his past, accept what he's done, as well as decide a direction for his future. So far, he's just been staying afloat and just trying to survive, and so I'm excited to see where he takes his life. I think one of the best things that Veronica and Sev really show in this novel is that there's two sides to every story, and you never know exactly which side is the correct side to take. There was obviously this huge battle between the Phoenix Riders and the regular people of this world, and you don't know which side was technically in the right, or if either side had the option of being in the right, like they both are terrible or they're both good, and how do you process those things? You start to see these characters figuring that out. That was one of the things that Nicki Pau Preto did really well, was keeping these two different sides balanced in the minds of the reader. You definitely can start off on one side or the other, but because of events or because of different information that comes to light, you start to question those things, and you haven't really figured out which side that you're on at the end of this novel, which I loved. So obviously the two sides to every coin is something that's addressed in this, but another thing is sexism. One of those buzzwords for people is when girls have to dress up as boys to do things, and Veronica has to dress up as a boy to become a Phoenix Rider, or to try to become a Phoenix Rider. The sexism against women in this rebel Phoenix Rider camp is addressed during the course of this novel, which I definitely appreciated. And my last pro is just phoenixes. Like, I love phoenixes. I think it's so cool. I really enjoyed learning about the phoenixes of this world. They're a little bit different than the phoenixes that you might be used to. How the phoenixes are born or how they reproduce and everything like that was all really interesting. I thought that it added a lot to this story, and I just love the idea of Phoenix Riders instead of Dragon Riders. It's so fun. So I was just loving the phoenixes in this. I want to be a Phoenix Rider. Now I'm going to talk about a couple of neutrals that I had. My first neutral for this book is that I'm obviously not a huge fan of romance in books. I just don't enjoy it all that much, and in this book it definitely has that YA heart skipped a beat romance going on. One thing with that though is that it is slow. It's not an insta-love situation, so I did appreciate that. But during certain conversations during this book, I was like, barf, this is too much right now. For some reason, romance in books I just don't love it. So that was there, and that was a neutral for me. Again, I thought that the book was pretty predictable. Like, I don't want to spoil it in case you just don't pick up on things, but it was very easy to realize that there were connections being made, and I don't know. I just don't think it was that unpredictable, which is not a bad thing. I said earlier that I was just loving all the drama and the tension, so that was great for me, but it is definitely predictable. And the only other thing that I was kind of neutral about was the fact that there's only like one or two words in the language that are used throughout the course of this book. One of them is the girl's word for grandmother. That is in the book so many times. Like, okay, I get it. They speak a different language, and this is the word for grandmother in this language. So it's just one of those things that Veronica thinks about this one person from her past, which she called this word for grandmother all the time, and it's just like, whoa. This is a lot of times that you're using this italicized word, and I don't know why I narrowed in on that, but I did. So overall, I did really enjoy myself while reading this. I think that the beginning had a rocky start, but then I quickly got invested in Veronica and in this world and finding out what was going to happen and watching all of this drama unfold. It was almost like a TV show, because you know TV shows are going to start being a little bit ridiculous and you know certain things are going to happen, but you're waiting for them to happen. That was like this book for me. It was just a purely fun, satisfying read that I really enjoyed. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. It's a pretty solid debut. I think it's got a lot of promise. I'm really excited about learning more about this world. Hopefully not in huge info dumps, but I definitely am excited for more phoenixes. So that's going to be my review on Crown of Feathers by Nicki Pau Preto. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up and comment down below if you're excited to read this book. If you have any other books that feature phoenixes in them, let me know those down in the comments because I would love to check them out. And anything else you want me to know, leave it down below and I will talk to you guys next time.